So what is a function? In almost all the programming languages, we use functions. There are 3 or 4 types of functions. One is the built-in function and the user-defined function. And then when it comes to Python, you have something else called anonymous function, the lambda function. Anonymous function is also called as a lambda function. And apart from this, we have something called partial function. First of all, what is a function? Why do we need to use a function? Once we create a function, it can be used over and over and over again, right? So you can invoke the same function many times in your program. Okay, the idea of creating a function is to perform repetitive tasks. For example, you want to compute the net salary for your 200,000 employees. So you have implemented the logic as part of your netsal function. All you need to do is pass the employees gross salary and then other parameters like tax and leave taken, right? So earnings minus deduction, something like that. Okay, so netsal function will calculate the net salary for each and every employee, but the logic or the formula to compute the net salary for all the employees same. Okay, so once it's something like create once and use it as many times as you want it. So the functions are also called as reusability. We create functions for the reusability purpose. Okay, and also the other reason why we use functions is it is to help us to define a logical structure of your program by breaking it down into number of smaller pieces, smaller modules or smaller pieces. So a function may or may not return a value. Not necessarily a function should return a value. So hope you understood what is a function. A function is right. So we use a function to call it as many times as you want it to execute our logic. Okay, so functions are nothing but a block of code using which you want to carry out a specific task repeatedly. The classic example, net salary. You want to compute the net salary for each and every employee. Can use the same formula for each and every employee repetitively in your program? No, right? So you will not be you will not be using the same thing again and again. Simply you call the function or apply the function for each and every employee to calculate the net salary, because of net salary. Okay, the net salary function, let's say you create a function by the name of net salary. You implemented the logic or the formula. You have used the formula there. You define the formula once there. Okay, and you can use the same function as many times as you want, or in this case you can apply the function for each and every employee, so that the same formula will get applied for each and every employee. So it is nothing but a block of code, a function, right, using which you can carry out a specific task repeatedly. A function may contain 0 or more than 1 argument. Please remember this. And also a function may return a value or it may not return a value. Okay, so why we need to use function? Using function we can improve the readability and we can eliminate redundancy. We can reduce this coupling. So what do you mean by coupling? Coupling is the degree of interdependence between models. A good programming or software should have low coupling. Okay, the different types of coupling I'm not going to discuss. There should not be any interdependency between a functions. Okay, so when you create the function, make sure that there should not be any interdependencies between one function to another function. Okay, so try to so there are cases, yes, there will be some kind of dependency, but try to make sure that you are going to have a low coupling in your logic. Okay, what do you mean? Increase readability and eliminate redundancy. What do you mean by redundancy? For example, you have 200,000 employees are there in your company, so you have a function. So in Python we need to use a keyword called def to define a function, user defined function. So my user defined function is netsal and followed by this, right? So here let's say argument, parenthesis. In the parenthesis you say the earnings and deductions. Okay, Here I am going to say n sal is equivalent to earnings minus deduction and return net n sal. So what will happen is this function you created only once for each and every line or each and every employee, right? This function will get applied when you call it. Okay, so that you don't have to write this statement for each and every employee. So if you specify, if you don't have a function, what will happen? Each and every employee, you need to n sal is equal to earnings minus deduction n sal. You need to write it each and every line. So this causes redundancy. If you have redundancy in your code, it looks difficult to interpret, where the problem happened. In case of troubleshooting, right, it's painful, and also it looks clumsy. To eliminate redundancy, we use functions. To reduce coupling, we use function. And there are three types of functions. One is the built-in functions, something like help. In Python you can use help function to find out help, minimum function, maximum function, and right, so these are your built-in functions or inbuilt functions. Okay, and next one is user-defined functions. So as a developer, we are going to create our own function based on the logic or business rules given by our customers. Okay, and the next one is anonymous function. It is also called as a lambda function. In Python we can create lambda function. Is there any other? I think even in the latest version of Java you can create lambda function. Okay, and apart from this we have something else called the partial function. So we have something else called partial function. So these are the four types of functions we can use it in Python. So how do we define a user defined function? How do we create a user defined function? The built-in function, we don't have to worry. So it is already available, and if you wanted to take a help of that, you can go to the Python here and you can say help of min function. I think you need to specify just min. Look here, it gives you the help for min. So min, the first argument is IEEE, argument 1, argument 3, star args. Okay, variable argument. This is called your variable number of arguments. And you can, you can get help like this with help. So this is a built-in function. Okay, and if you want to find out the minimum values of a list or something, for example, L is equal to 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. And L dot min function, I think you need to use it. No, min of L. Yeah, min of L will give you the minimum value. So the min function was written already by someone else. We don't have to write a function to find out the minimum value or that are there in this list, maximum, min, max, something like that. So you have something called average, or you have something called median. Sorry, not average, median, or standard deviation, STD, I think so, not SD, I think SD. So these are the SD, all these things, the standard deviation, all those things are available as part of some other statistical packages, which we will see it here. At this moment you just think you can use min function to find out. These are the functions already written by someone else. Those are called built-in or inbuilt functions, the min, max, help. Okay, and if I want to create my own function, okay, so in that case we have to create a user defined function. So how do I create a user defined function? So this is the syntax for it. Def, this is the keyword, followed by the keyword you need to specify function name. You can specify your own function. Okay, and followed by the function name, specify the parameter list. Inside this parenthesis, open and close, you need to specify the parameter values, and then finally you need to specify the return statement. The return statement used to return a value from a function. To return a value from a function, we use it. So for example, I just go here and will define a simple user defined function. So def, I'm going to say net sal. You can name it whatever you want it, but you need to give meaningful name. Okay, net sal. In my case, I want to compute the net salary. So HRA, loan, all those things. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say net sal, so n sal is equivalent to basic plus HRA minus loan and return n sal. This is my function. I just created a simple function. Okay, here the basic HRA loan are called as parameters or arguments of my net sal function. So what is the def? If you want to create a user defined function, you need to specify def. Def is the syntax. This is the reserved word or keyword. Okay, keyword followed by the keyword function name. What is the function name here? Net sal. Inside the parentheses, I specified all the parameters. So basic, HRL, and you can specify comma leave also, LOP, loss of P also you can specify it here. So now we have created a function, and the return statement will return a value from this function. What value it will return from the function? N sal. Got it? So now the question is, we defined a function. How do I execute the function, or how to call a function? How to call a function? Non-programmers, creating a function is not sufficient. You need to use this logic, right? So net sal, and I'm going to specify something like 1 lakh or 15,000. Loan is deductible. So let's he has got loan of 25,000. So when I created a function first step. So now you understood. So this is a logic. Okay, so this is the logic, or it is called as a business logic. Okay, business logic. You need to check with your customer, or this business logic will be available in design document or requirement document. So based on this, you need to specify the rule here, okay, or logic in it. In my case, let us assume that so basic plus HRA minus loan. This is how they are computing the net salary. So here the N sal will hold the output of this one, the earnings minus deduction will get the net sal. This is the one I'm going to return it. So the function is ready. I wrote this logic once, and I want to reuse it as many times as I wanted. For example, one employee's basic salary is 1 lakh, and this HRA is 15,000, is loan. He borrowed loan 25,000. If I pass 3 values here, this value will get copied to basic parameter or the argument, and this value will get copied to HRA, and this value will get copied to loan, or simply substituted here. So what will happen is here, the basic whatever value, right, got copied to these variables, that will get computed here. So basic is 1 lakh plus HRA is 15,000 minus loan is 25,000. You will get the net salary. Now I'm going to hit the run and see what is the output here. So is this a correct value? So here I have 100,000 is the salary. 100,000 minus 25,000 is 75,000 plus 15,000 is 90,000. It is correctly calculate the values. The basic, HRA and loan are called as passed by reference, or called passed. See, the memory address of basic, HRA, loan are passed here. Okay, so or you just think the basic, HRA, loan are parameters. Okay, so the calling function, what is the calling function here? Net sal, right? So the net sal, this is how we call a function. So we need to make sure that we are going to specify the values for all the parameters that we defined as part of your function. If I don't specify anything here, let us see what happens. And if I execute it, what will happen? It's throwing an error. missing one required positional argument loan, right? So you need to specify 3 arguments, but you did not specify 3 arguments here. Alternatively, what you can do is you can specify the default value here itself. 25 so default value for the parameter here itself. You can specify. This is another way of defining the. So in this case, if you don't specify the value for the loan, it will work. But usually we don't specify the default value. But some cases we specify the the default value for the parameter here itself. Any questions so far? Okay, next thing what you need to keep in mind here is, so the basic HRA, whatever the value, right? The argument basic HRA loan, these are called positional arguments. It is also called as a positional arguments. If you specify the HRA value first, and if you specify the basic the second value, so obviously you will not get the correct output. According to this logic, it will work. For example, if you specify 100,000 here by thinking that this is my basic, and if you specify loan here, what will happen? Loan plus HRA will get computed. For example, 25,000, 15,000 and 1 lakh if you specify it. Here the order matters. Basic HRA loan. So in this order you need to pass the value. If you change the order, it will cause confusions. Is there any way if I can change the order? So this is called your positional arguments. Positional. Next one is you have something called keyword arguments, using which you can change the order. For example, if I say loan, keyword, I specify loan here, and will it work? I just hit the run. Yes, it is working fine. Perfectly, it is working. So initially I mentioned loan here, 25,000. So what happens? This keyword argument, since I mentioned the keyword argument as loan itself, you cannot use some other thing here. So it will throw an error. So whatever the argument that you have used it here, right? So the basic HRA, the same name you are supposed to use it. So though I have specified loan as the first argument, right? Still the 25,000 gets copied to only the loan variable. So the it will get copied to the loan. Okay, forget about this one. It will copy it here. Okay, loan, and basic will get copied here. Even if you change the order of your argument, in the case of keyword arguments, it will not cause any issues. Can I mix both? Positional, this is called your keyword arguments. Can I mix both keyword as well as the positional arguments? Is it possible? For the sake of our understanding, I just put positional arguments. Can I mix these two? Okay, what I do is I just put it here. Will it work? Will it work? Yes, it works. Your positional argument is followed by keyword argument. Can I do it other way around? So for example, if I say something like this, it will not work. The positional argument follows a keyword argument. You need to remember this. If you want to mix both the positional and keyword arguments, see here in this case, though you change the order, so what is your function? I just copy paste it one more time here so that I don't have to scroll up every now and then. So in this case, I'm going to remove this one. Okay, here the positional argument, it will work, right? So 100,000, you have given the correct value in proper order. So hence the basic, since you have correctly specified the order, it will compute the net salary correctly. But you just change the order here. So instead of specifying the basic value here, you put a loan 25,000, but you mentioned very clearly, hey, this 25,000 is meant for this parameter, and this 100,000 is meant for basic, this 15,000 is fine. But if I combine, this is called your keyword arguments. Using keyword arguments, you can change the order of your arguments or parameters. But when you combine the positional argument with the keyword, so why it is called positional arguments? You need to make sure that you are passing the correct number of arguments, that too in the proper sequence. But we can break that rule by using keyword arguments. Can I mix these two things? Yes, it is possible. But when you mix these two things, you need to make sure that first you specify the positional argument, and then only you are going to use the keyword argument. So in that case it works, but don't specify the positional argument followed by the keyword argument. It will get confused. Okay, you cannot use it. So you need to remember these simple things. But when you use this kind of thing, right, it will be much readable. Okay, especially when a function has multiple arguments or parameters, and if you specify this, the chances of making the mistake is very, very less. So hope you understood the keyword arguments and the positional arguments. And is it possible to mix these two things? Yes, possible. And we discussed about the default parameter. So default parameter, positional argument, keyword argument, and default argument or default parameter. So you understood. And there are three arguments in summary. The one is positional argument. The positional argument must agree in order and number with the arguments. So you need to define this or declare this as part of your function definition. Whereas in the case of keyword arguments, it must agree with the declared parameters in number. Here also the same thing. For example, just because I have used keyword arguments, if I don't specify the value for HR, it will throw an error. You need to specify 3 arguments values here when you call a function. Okay, and also make sure that you are giving the correct argument name. Okay, and you can mix both positional argument and default parameters. These are the 3 things: key arguments or key parameters, positional parameters, default parameters we have discussed so far. And can I assign a function to a variable? Yes, that is possible. For example, if I execute it, and if I want to see net as, this gives me the function name. So what happens is, here I mentioned the function name. I did not use open and closed parenthesis. So what happens is, the address of this function get assigned to this one. Okay, hence net has become a function itself. And here if I pass these values, it works. So now net has become an itself. We can assign a function to a variable. But here I'll just show you this one also. So even in this case, it is getting executed correctly. But even in this case, I'll just combine these two things. What is the difference between these two? Let me see how many of you can answer it. What is the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two? Okay, I just show you here. Print net s. See, what is happening here is, I just type it here. Let me see if this works. So in this case, what happens is the address of this one get copied. So netSal is a function. Ideally, I should have mentioned parenthesis, right? I should have mentioned parenthesis like this. Okay, here I did not specify the parenthesis. Since I did not specify parenthesis like this, right? See, I should have mentioned like this: netSal parenthesis, the value for each and every argument. I should have mentioned it here, but I did not, specify the parenthesis here. Simply I typed netSal, which means like how the Python uses an address to access the values, right? Similarly, even for the function, it uses an address. Okay, using an address if you want to access it. See, netSal will simply return a address of your function in your memory where the netSal function is there. That's all. Okay, so that address gets stored here. So now net has become a function. So now if you pass the arguments to netAs, so netAs is nothing but your netSal function. Just remember this. Okay. So since you did not specify open and closed parenthesis, the address of netSal simply copy to netAs. Hence netAs become a function. Okay. But here in this case, on the right side of the equal sign, you passed all the three required values for the corresponding arguments. So what happens is netSal function got invoked and these values got passed to that netSal function and it returned the nsal value and it assigned it to this one. See, the right side returned the value, whereas here the right side of your equal sign just returned the address of your function. Invoked or executed the netSal function. In the previous case, it did not execute the netSal function. Simply, it will copy the address. It's something like your manager is giving you. Let's say he is on leave, right? He gives his whatever the privileges he has, right? He has simply given it to you. For example, your manager is on leave. What he does, you are a project leader. He tells you, hey, you need to approve the billing for this weekend of our employees. All our employees, I'm on leave. Okay, he delegated the task to you. Since your manager on leave, whatever he can do, you do it on his behalf. You just think this analogy. Okay, so you apply this analogy for this. Okay, so in this case, you are delegating this one. You are saying netAs also pointing to the address location of netSal. If it points to this address, then whatever he does, he can do, right? So that is what it does here. So here you are simply executing the function on the right side and the value returned by this function, you simply assign it a variable. So net, you can assign a function to a variable. Okay, you can assign a function to a variable. Remember this, okay? It's already 1:55. Okay, so what we will do is we'll wrap up the session. We will continue the session tomorrow. In tomorrow's session, we will discuss the advanced part of the functions. Okay, and then followed by this, we will take a look at the NumPy package. It's one of the important package, and then we will jump into pandas. Tomorrow it might take some more time, so hence you plan it accordingly. Okay, any questions so far? I'll share this script and we'll share the video also, don't worry. And you work on this one in the meanwhile. Okay, I'll share the script, you work on this. Fine, let me see how many of you. Now I got the solution. Just now it popped up in my mind. So what mistake I made it. So let me see how many of you can solve this issue. Okay, since you don't have any questions, I'm going to wrap up the session. Tomorrow we will continue with pandas, and let me see if I can complete pandas tomorrow itself. Otherwise, next Saturday we will complete pandas, and next Sunday the plan is we'll start the inferential statistics part. Okay, and inferential statistics will go for we'll try to wrap up inferential statistics also probably the next 2 weekends, and followed by that we'll jump into machine learning. And would suggest you all to plan for AWS machine learning than Azure machine learning. Okay, AWS also will try to cover the machine learning part. AWS machine learning, the demand is more compared to Azure machine learning, because when I worked with TCS as part of the business development call, we used to get more number of requests around AWS machine learning. And even in the case of Azure machine learning studio, we are on Azure machine learning studio, so you can do drag and drop, but still it is not that flexible. Okay, so you need to do some kind of customization, you need to write script. Still you can call Python script as part of the Azure machine learning studio. That is the best thing. And those of you are looking for certification, you give me some time. This Monday I'll come back with the certification details for both AWS machine learning as well as Azure machine learning. This certification can help you to stand out the crowd. Okay, that's it. And you can say you are certified by Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Service, right? So AWS certification, machine learning certification, you got it, you can get it. But still, if you say that you are an experienced person, you can get a job. Okay, certification, just give you an identity. End of the day, how good are you with the algorithm? That is what they will be expecting. In this one, the SDK, they use different SDK in Azure machine learning, and AWS they use something called Sagemaker. Sagemaker is also very popular SDK. Right? Simply you need to pass the arguments. That's it. You don't have to write scripts for the algorithms. Okay. Down the line we will take a look at the AWS machine learning also. Okay, and certification related details, give me some time. I'll check with my people and I'll come back TCS folks. Okay, and Monday or so I'll come back to you. Okay, since you don't have any questions, I'm going to wrap up the session now. We'll share the video shortly.